Come and get started on a new mission, a new direction, a new intention. Welcome to 5.8G Alive at Connections 50 Plus. I am Terry-Ann Joseph Brathwaite.
And I am Jennifer Gibbons Joseph, catering to all your prospects in the third act of life.
Economic well-being, social gratification, personal fulfillment.
Join us on Wednesday at 6 p.m. on Connections 50 Plus Facebook page, YouTube channel,
and on Gael the Caribbean. Good evening, Connections 50 Plus people. It is Wednesday and it is 5.8G Alive. Welcome. I am Terry-Ann Joseph Brathwaite, one of the co-creators of Connections 50 Plus, which brings you 5.8G Alive. With me as usual.
Hi, everyone, and good evening. I am Jennifer Gibbons Joseph, the other co-creator of Connections 50 Plus. Welcome, welcome, welcome to this evening's show.
Well, I hope everyone is settling into their well, the new year is established. It is established. We passed half of January, so we in 2024. No new year business now. For us in the Caribbean, because we in Trinidad and we are the Mecca, we are less than a month to the 12th of February. So we are in kind of a mode, and we hope that you all are having a good time. Jennifer, how have you been going? Is the season quiet?
Well, I'm saying we have been having a great time. My first, and I think it may have been yours too, Terry-Ann, first carnival outing. We went to Pet Saturday. It was really, really nice. And that, I got the spirit now. I have the carnival spirit.
Yeah. And we'll tell you coming up, we promised you all an event and a lime. So you'll hear more about it at the end of the show, but just circle your calendars, the 4th of February. Connections, we get in face-to-face and we liming. So anyway, Carnival is here. Choose your road march, choose your calypso, choose your tent, choose your mass band, choose a place to go and reflect quietly, whatever you choose to do. But on the 4th of February, reserve it for us to get together.
Yeah.
So, Jen, we have important things to talk about. So let's get into our tribe and continue our conversation about our master points, which we started last week. Great. Jennifer, just as a recollection, you know, we said that there were 4 master points that we wanted us to reflect on so that we, as we go into this third act of life, without being distracted by our children or our parents, you know, really focusing on ourselves. And last week, we talked about the whole issue of living with adult children who have their own sexuality that they need to manage. And if you want to know about that, you could go back to our show last week. And we also touched base on the whole issue of which comes first, your energy, how you direct it, or putting resources into something, hoping that the energy flows. So very, very important discussions that I think, as again, even if you saw the show last week, it's worth your while revisiting. But Jennifer, this week we're going on to another critical issue that must be covered with master points. You want to talk to people about this?
Yeah, and Terry-Ann, let me tell you too, this topic that we're going to discuss is a topic, and let me warn you all from before. It is what you call a real tough one, where we don't like to face that reality at all. And that is talking about debt, talking about legacy, talking about will. And when I'm saying talking about, we're not going into details because we did have a lawyer, Bird and Shepherd, who went in a lot in terms of the legal aspect. We are dealing with, in this conversation, real situations that affect us. And we said it's really, it's a be real with your responsibilities. You know, we tend to shun responsibility when it dealing to anything about legacy, when it dealing to anything about whether, of course, so let's not talk about that, you know. And we tend to, instead of confronting it, Terry-Ann, we push it aside. We don't discuss it. And guess when it comes up? It comes up at the death of someone, or not death, critical illness, or if they're in a stage where it could be Alzheimer's, it could be dementia, in a stage where
Incapacity.
they don't know
Incapacity.
themselves. Yeah.
Incapacity.
And this is what, you know, we're going to be talking about. And Terry-Ann, in chatting about this situation, these situations that, you know, I want to start by highlighting 4 key ones that I have experienced, both being on the field, as those who don't know, I once was in the insurance field, and this situation comes up a lot. And I still, being active as a financial coach, you hear these stories, and I thought I will, you know, share some of these scenarios, and in sharing, hopefully you'll, you know, it varies with people. This is not these are scenarios, but real scenarios that we hope, being in that muster point, that hey, when you leave that muster point, you know, you actually have guidelines, you know, how to make your life much better, and not just your life, but your family, your loved ones, you know, not to put them in that situation where they're bickering, fighting, and taking each other to court to get what they think is rightfully theirs.
Jennifer, I think I would also like to add, because you said, you know, take responsibility for legacy and stuff like that. And I want to add a word to it. It's stop being afraid of being the adult in the room and being accountable, and stop wanting to play favorites and wanting to be liked by everybody, and therefore avoiding making decisions that you know very well you need to make. But those decisions will make you unpopular. So you defer them, you delay them, or you make them very obscure. And by the time you realize, look, water more than flour, you can't do one single thing. Either physically you can't make it, or mentally no one is going to take your decision. And that is something that really destroys your having a safe muster point to go to. Or if you end up in crisis and you're at the muster point, when the crisis is done and you have to leave your muster point, there's nowhere to go to, because everything is in the air. Yes, Jen.
Sarah, first, you know, we're looking at the entire what happens within the family. And remember, let me start by saying we are talking about, again, 50 plus. So we're not even referring to the little ones, us, our age group.
Yes.
You know, who decided they're not making will, or they're not putting things in place. Or you're looking at those who, although at this stage, our parents would have passed on and would have left us either in confusion or not. So I want to share the scenario, Terry-Ann, on siblings. And in many cases, you find, because of our age group, our era, our parents, those who own homes, would think, okay, when I die, I'm going to leave the house for everybody, regardless. But, and I'm dealing here with parents or the last surviving parent who did make a will. And in that will, they left the property, which is one home, one house, for 4 siblings. Okay? And in that case, Terry-Ann, that's great. 4 siblings, three of the siblings, they own their own home because we are at this stage with adult children and all that. Three own their own homes already. And the fourth one, because of the situation, went back to live in the family home with their children. Okay? The thing about it is, now there is a situation. The one that lives, the sibling that happens to be living in the house still, only own, so let's say it's four of them, each of them have equal shares. One of the siblings right now who own their own home, the situation is such that they need money. They need cash. So their thing is, buy me out. Okay? So they appeal to the other three siblings, the one who is living in the home and the other two who have their own home, is listen, I am in a situation and I need to be bought out. I need that money. When you value the property worth about 2 million. So for me, when you divide that, that is good for me. And so at this stage, at her stage in life, because she's 60 already, wants some money because of different medical issues, etc. But Terry-Ann, in a case like this, guess what? Everybody have to decide, all four owners, all the four who have shares, have to decide, one, whether they are willing to buy out the sister share or not. The problem is not that they're not willing, you know, Terry-Ann. The problem is they don't have any money. Okay? And the only way they can get money is if they sell the property and divide the money one time. But the sister who living in it with her kids who only have part of share can't afford to buy the property. So right now it is creating havoc because none of them have the money to buy out, the only way to do it is to sell the property. And I'm sharing this because, Terry-Ann, this whole thing could have been avoided if from day one, when the house, that situation after, I think was the father is the one who died last and left it. There should have been a family meeting to discuss the different scenarios. But we don't do that. We don't do that. We don't want to look like we're greedy, you know? If you come up and say, well, you know, I want my money, I better sell the house, they're looking like, oh no, they will want to keep it in the family. My question is, what family? Whose family? Because if each of them has children, then who family really gaining from it? Unless even if you come together and say, we're keeping it, but then sorry, then we have to maybe rent it out. It have to, you know, some income have to be coming in. So the surviving siblings could gain from it. And in situations like that, Terry-Ann, it also creates a problem as we get older, siblings dying out. So out of the four, the possibility is one can die, depending on how the will is done up. You don't know where that share going, if it going to you know, the children, etc. So I'm sharing this for those who in situations like that and haven't addressed it or look at the different things that, and I just shared this scenario with the siblings. I don't need to tell you, Terry-Ann, there are so many other aspects of such a situation. And in my looking at it, the only way to solve that is to come together and make a decision. And if you're keeping it, it's only fair for the sibling that has been living free in it since after the death of the father is the one really, Terry-Ann, should come together maybe with her children or something and say, hey, we're going to buy you all if I want to stay in it. If not, then agree to sell and take that money and see if you can help yourself, whether you rent, whether you... It's difficult at that age for that person to go get a mortgage or anything. But if you have children, they can help in that. So that is a scenario among siblings, Terry, and that has been creating a lot of issues because nobody want to discuss it. They're scared. They will look greedy. One in that a scenario I know similar where one person say, "Oh, you could do her that, so long she living there, we can't put her out." So we have that situation.
Jennifer, I think one of the things that I don't know, it's when you're not accustomed to handling assets and you're not accustomed to handling wealth and things like that, and you come into a position where you perceive there is wealth or there's an asset to be held, it becomes very difficult for us to separate the management of a real asset, the ownership of an asset, and the emotions that would guide the relationship between siblings, and also the failure to realize the impact of time on ownership of assets. And the
That's very
scenario that
true.
you brought out there really, really shows how we can get comfortable and put ourselves in trouble. Because very often you would have everyone in a family home. And whether it is for migration, whether it is I marry and I go, you marry and you go, whether it is somebody end up there seeing about ma and pa, or whatever it is, everybody is happy in their respective place. I stay here, I see about ma and pa. I have 3 children, or I have 2 children. They here with me seeing about ma and pa. And that is all nice and innocent when the little baby and toddler running around the place. But if ma and pa lived to a good 30, 40, 50 years, and I am now in my 50s or 60s or 70, and my 3 children are in their 30s, 40s, and 50s, and we all, and ma and pa have gone to the yonder.
Yeah.
It ends up in a place where those who have gone away or wherever always behind their head know I'm a part owner of that thing. And you brought up 2 points that are worth considering. One sibling in distress cannot demand that the assets, which is a family asset, be liquidated. That creates one set of bacchanal one time, because I in distress and I find you must tell the family asset. Another person who is not in distress may say, the market down, I'm not selling now, you crazy? And then, there is but how you could not help me out? I in distress, but the person who is probably living somewhere well will say, I am not selling the family house in a depressed market. And then the person who was there seeing about ma and pa with their children is saying, but you're talking about selling the house that I live in. How can we do that?
Yes, where we will go.
Where we will go. And I know there are so many of our listeners looking now, because you could look at the person who is saying sell as a selfish person, or desperate person. You could look at the sibling who is saying, but the market down, why should I sell and not get the maximum, as a greedy one who don't care about it? But that person, if you look at them from another point of view, may have wisdom. You have an asset you wanted to grow in value. And then you could look at the person who has been there forever, taking care of ma and pa. And the other two may say, well, you've lived for all this time and your children are there and they're grown and they're working. Well, it's time you all go and find what you need, because if it was 3 children, the 2 who are outside may need to come back to Trinidad because they're old and they can't take the cold. So where they'll go, there's no room in the family home, and so many of us can find ourselves in this situation where, because of comfort, you in yonder land comfortably living and then something happens and you have to scramble to look for your assets. You are here taking care of man, comfortably living, and you just grow your family and everybody is there.
Yeah.
And you on the other side looking on and have this asset there that you're trying to maximize value. And after manpower is gone, siblings are at each other's throats. And really, there is no place in that equation, Jennifer, for any emotional anything, or it is not fair to anyone because the parents left the asset for all of us. And because you stayed to look, you live free for how many years? You've been paid. The person who is in distress is saying, but manpower would have done anything to help me out. But
Yeah. And
and the one who is there looking at the wealth will say, but why must I lose out of my wealth? Because you have a
so
problem.
Tarian, that shows us that in those times, we are in different times. So in those times, our parents really had very family oriented, and they felt somewhere you need to keep the family together. And when you leave it for everybody, and in those they have plenty, 5, 6, 7 children. All right. Didn't go beyond in terms of, I am not sure. We are fortunate now that we have the professionals who could advise us and drill us through different scenarios. I don't think that might have been the case, because in most situations I know of, that one house that they acquired was left for everybody. And they didn't go beyond that, nor called a meeting to say, if this happened, do this. So it is us now, Terry-Ann, in this space where we are now, understanding or seeing all those scenarios, even within our own families, should try and not repeat that situation, one. And two, since we're aware of it, it is not too late for those siblings to come together, understanding the scenarios and work it through. Because I'm telling you, when you reach this stage, 60 plus, and you are living really on a reduced income, and these things, I mean, cost of living has gone up in so many ways. And one illness, if it's not you or child, let me tell you, we are talking just easily without any fuss, right here, just going to a nursing home. You are talking about a minimum 300,000, and I'm being very, very, thing here. So someone who needs 300,000 basic for critical medical situation to extend your lives, and you have that money tied up in an asset. You cannot go to the bank and use it. You can't say, well, I have this, so we're getting a loan.
Yours. It's not yours. So you
It's not right. It's not yours. It's tied up. All right. You cannot ask any of the siblings or their children, because why would they lend you that money? They have no guarantee when they get in that bank. So we are in a different times, and we need to look at, because there is a situation of a buyout to help that person. And in that case, when we have any meetings, might be really advisable for us to bring in our children, who are the ones who will inherit. If you're keeping it in the family, they are the ones inherit, and they may be in a better position to negotiate a loan with other means, and you see how you can do things there. So my thing is, for those, it has happened already in certain scenarios and creating chaos. And when you drive around, you're seeing plenty houses just lock up and grass growing all over it. We want to avoid that. So that's why we're sharing this particular scenario with siblings, and what can be done. And it's not too late to help out, because Terry and I really find it hard to know I need 500,000 or something, and I have an asset tie up when I'm not getting it.
Jennifer, I think we have to be careful with language, in that in a case like that, you don't have an asset that's tied up. If an asset is tied up, it means it's pledged to somebody. You have an asset that has joint
Well,
owners. You have a fraction of an asset. And
that's
unless,
dormant.
yeah, you have a fraction of an asset that can't be divided unless all owners agree. And
Agree. Yeah.
your stress is not a reason for somebody else to agree. And I think that is what a lot of us have to understand. You could be on death's door and needing that 500,000 to bring you back to life. If the 3 or 4 co-owners who are joint owners don't agree, get ready to meet your maker because there is
I agree
no
with you in
reason
that
to.
that is real scenario. That
There
is
is
real
no reason.
scenario.
You can't,
And saying it's
yes,
tied up is really in terms of the financial terminology. It isn't the correct financial
yeah,
terminology.
yeah.
But we have to realize it cannot be touched
It is jointly
unless all
owned.
owners agree. Yeah.
Yes, and I think that is where the crux is. So, and many of us feel that, and very often, Jennifer, the person who feels strongest is the person who has stayed and has tended to the asset and took care of the parents, and they call it sweat equity. But sweat equity does not convey ownership to a real asset unless the owner of that asset transfers it to you. And that is where I think
Yeah.
a lot of us get confused and think we are being hard done by and all those different things.
Yeah.
And it
Yeah.
is just sometimes we have to realize that and I think what we have to look at now when we are at this stage, we really have to say, is the asset that we are looking at, whether it's a house, land, or whatever it is, that we think will carry us into the future, is it truly yours? Yours to decide on. And if it is jointly yours and has your children not involved in this, that is the other thing, Jennifer. It is jointly you and 2 or 3 siblings. It has nothing to do with your children and their welfare.
When I mention insurando, and this is something that not every is a matter of choice, but in cases where you're joint owner of something, and I know in situations with us, our generation, we tend to only have 1 or 2 children. We don't have that. Yes, some of us do, but the majority only have 2 or 1. For me, it is important to let them be aware of what is happening. Not that they're not owner of it, you are. But what happens
You're only a part
in
of
the
it.
event
A part of it.
of that? Yeah, what happens? So I always believe, though, I am one, this is my personal belief all the time, that sharing information and letting your children be aware of your assets and your plans, this is my personal view, that they should be aware of it, you
Mhm.
know?
And I think going beyond the awareness, Jennifer, for many of us, again, if you are joint owner of something, you should let your children know that you don't own this. You don't have any share in this. And
You're the only house you're living in.
you don't. You're living free. You should tell them that and not build expectations. But more critically, I think that many of us don't realize we are on the verge of homelessness because we are dependent on an asset that we are part owner of. And if for some reason the mother or father has passed on and you are joint owners, no one can take a share unless there's an agreement. And I know of a family where the parents died, the mother died, and there were 3 children. One was living in the house, taking care of the parent. And with the parent dying, the 3 siblings, to probate that will, they had to sell the house. The sibling who was living in the house could not afford to buy it. And it came down
Mhm.
to, so because you can't afford to buy it, should we be denied our inheritance? And that sibling to the world was put out of their parental home, but they weren't. The house was sold and they got their share of it. It just so happened that their share of it led them to have to rent somewhere because they couldn't afford to buy anything.
Yeah.
And again,
That's real. Huh?
that person had children at that time. The children were in A levels, and they had two children. One was in A levels, and one was at the start of university. And a lot of people were talking about the others heartless, but they're not heartless.
Yes,
This
I
is
know.
their asset. It is left to the three of them. Okay, so because it is my inheritance, so I'm supposed to give up my inheritance so you could continue living free and at leisure.
And that's the bottom line. Mhm.
And there is no, I mean, yes, there's the, oh my God, how it gonna look kind of thing. But the point I think we have to drive home is critical to protecting your master point. You must know your status, and you can't assume that somebody is going to give up their share because of your situation. Whether that
Yep.
situation is you're desperate, you have occupation, or you're trying to maximize your wealth. It is just that. And that, Jennifer, is so sad.
No, I agree. And in most cases, as you said, those that remained home, the sibling that remained in the house, I am very careful, taken care of, as they say it.
Whatever they were
And
doing there, taking care
it
of
looks like,
free, whatever it was.
you know, that it's unfair for them to not be able to continue enjoying that free space. Um, we have to manage our expectations and what we
And then
assume.
it's also
Yeah?
unfair to deny the other siblings their rights to their inheritance. So
In Trinidad, they say, but they didn't kick share of the mother or father.
no, but
Ah,
the parents. Now this is
I
where
hear you, and this
this
is
is
real.
where, and again, this is where we have to learn not to do what our parents did. Very often, our parents know that the person who has stayed to take care of the parents, because they're taking care of the parents, has sacrificed economically, and they therefore cannot afford to own the house. And very many times, Jennifer, the parents know, well, you live in it free for all the time. So by the time you have children, your children will help you. And the others may have been sending money. The others may
No,
have
as I
been
said, it's
doing
real, and we have painted a lot of different scenarios. I'm sure there are many, many others that we can add in, but the
yeah.
message there is take care of your business and don't shun your responsibilities,
Don't do what your
especially when it
parents
comes
did.
into legacy.
Yeah, don't
Yeah.
do what your parents did, because a lot of parents will keep quiet and leave you there going along, and you are thinking that the siblings will be, they'll recognize your sweat equity, but when it comes to dollars and cents, I know sweat equity, there's joint ownership, and I need to have my share of it, and that causes a lot of us to, for us and our children, to lose the roofs over our heads. And that's a real, and then you see the grass, the house stand up there, as you say, board up and grass growing on it. And somebody, because we're not agreeing. It is sad.
True.
It is
The
sad.
other scenario on that too, the second one, Terrian, as we spoke about siblings, is about the spouses.
Mm.
Again, we have brought up, and I keep saying we, because within our scenario, our age group, that the man is the head of the household, and really and truly, earlier, the man was the breadwinner, in terms of, even if we were working, they were the ones bringing in the bigger salary in many cases and made the decisions. So when it comes to, I'm dealing again with property here. When it comes to taking a loan to buy a property, in some cases, the man being the main breadwinner with the highest salary, the financial institution would put the property or the house on the man's name, unless, of course, the wife working sufficiently and think that her name should be on it. But there are many scenarios where, for whatever reason at the time, whether it is the man could have carried the mortgage on their own, or whether it is they own the land, so it was easier for them to get the loan on the house. There are many scenarios, but I am sharing here a scenario for whatever reason. At the time of purchase, the spouse didn't go as joint owner on the property. Okay? And again, I must mention within our age group that we tend not to like the idea of making a will. And the reason sometimes is because, well, we're not going to dead now. All we have is a house. We don't have no set of assets. Why bother? There are many reasons why people make the decision, but I'm just dealing with the bottom line now. And to share scenario, and let me tell you, a same spouse, it could be the wife owned the house with the husband name not on it for whatever reason. I know situations like that, if the wife may have inherited, the property and decide to upgrade it or whatever and own the property prior to the marriage. We have all different types of scenario. So, but in a case where you have one spouse as the sole owner of the property and you have children, it is really important to have a discussion, Terry Ann, on that. And I just want to throw in this part. At the time of a purchase, you may have been happily married and going along. You're contributing, I know many women, you're contributing, but the house is not in your name. And in a case of divorce or separation, depending on the scenario at the time, you may lose out in not getting a full half the property, as they say, etc., etc. So this scenario I want to paint is where persons legally married, they're married, and the house is only in the spouse name. Scenario is the spouse, in that case, was married before and divorced, so they remarry. So it's a legal marriage now. And that spouse dies, Terry Ann. Now the wife assumes that house automatically.
The second wife.
Yeah, the second wife. Mm-hmm. That's hers and her children on. So you could just remain living in the house. But when you check now and say, okay, this house I'm living in is really too big for me to manage, or whatever reason, you have to do some work with it. Terry Ann, I'm not sure if people are aware, but these are things we're talking about that we need to clean up and have you put your house in order, as you say. Terry Ann, in a situation like that, that person didn't make a will, never put the wife's name on it. When during the marriage, the wife never discussed. These are things, Terry Ann, we don't say nothing. We frightened to talk or to ask that spouse. So here now, my name on that house. When you put in the name on the house, we don't do that at all, because we don't look like we're greedy. And sometimes the other spouse will say, what, you want to kill me or what? We tend to make these type of silly jokes about serious things. If we don't ensure that our names are on that property in a proper, we are here, we are married, we together, we have children, we need to talk about why my name not on the property. And I'm talking man or woman, we're not discriminating here. We need to sit and discuss that, because the end result, when one party dies, there's no will to probate or anything. So you need to go the court, you have to get letters of administration, all that. Terry, and the legal fees alone to get things together. I mean, it's a big cost, and in many cases, people don't have it, they can't get a loan, and they just sit there and say, you know what, let me live this through, let the children deal with it when that time comes. And that happens in many, many cases, it happens. What we also forgetting, and it may not be that person was married before, they may have children before, or during, or whatever, they have other children outside the marriage. And we have to look at how many and whether these children have say or what. So you need to mind your business. You need to mind your business. Talk openly, be real, because we can't sit back and say, oh, I don't want to bring up that. And in some cases, the other spouse may say, look, why are you bringing up that? Let's not talk about that. No, you have to bring it up. Listen, at this stage in our lives, if you haven't brought up that yet, it's time to do it. And you may find out the truth at times when you can't do anything about it again. Right? It could be a death. Some people say disability is just as bad as death. And when we talk disability, in a way, you can't sign, you can't even put a thumbprint, you can't raise your hand, you can't do anything. You have to get proof that that person's mental state is good. All these things. Why wait until then? While you're waiting, it's time, it's money, it's frustration, and it's plenty of the people coming to say they have shame. So that aspect with a spouse not taking that responsibility and having that discussion is something we should look at.
Yeah. Jennifer, you're assuming a lot of honor with a spouse there. So you given the context of the honorable spouse, I will give the context of the dishonorable spouse. Because very often, if this is your second marriage, or you have children outside of the marriage, where you as a woman ask the husband, and I don't think the question is my name on the deed. The question should be, can I see the deed for the house? Not is my name on the deed. It should be, can I see the deed for the house? And if you get a definitive no, go in the Red House or whatever government office and ask for a copy of the deed. Because if you are not jointly owner of the house, when your spouse dies and you're legally married, title does not fall automatically to you. In the absence of a will, as Bernard Shepard said, the law prescribes how assets are divided. Half you as the lawful wife, and half is divided amongst all his children. And the children on the outside may be very loyal agents to their mother. So you may end up with an asset that you and your husband live with. Your children may have long gone and set up their own lives, and everybody trying to do what they have to do. And you left with this huge asset that you can't handle again. And when you try to do something with it, because you are not the automatic owner on his debt, because your name not on the deed that you didn't ask to see. You're only asking if my name on the will, but they're dishonorable. They know they have other children they have to sort out, but they don't want you in that. You will find that you have to negotiate with your children and whoever else turn up with proof of paternity or maternity, depending on if it is flipped on the cases. And it is amazing that we I always remember, and again, my father looks at this, and I always used to, when our family home was the mortgage was paid off. I asked both my parents, I said, where's the deed? I want to see the deed. And I told my mother and I told my father, put the deed in a place, and every month you all make sure and go and look for the deed. Because a deed that is not pledged to a financial institution is a negotiable document. You could do all
And
kinds
Tarian, you're quite correct here.
of
And let
legal
me share this
documents.
again. There are so many, Tarian, in this day and age, as we speak now, women who are not aware of even, and this may sound bad,
Not
right?
if they're watching
Exactly
Connection
what a
50
deed
Plus.
is.
Not what they watch, not if they're watching us. Because go back to the show with
No, I am
Georgia.
saying those who watching, there are those who watching that don't even want, they're still scared. And we do workshops, Tarian, and then sometimes we ask that question. And some people, I want to put it bluntly, they want to feel they're living in some dream world or something. They will tell you, I don't know, I think so. And it's not that I think so. So we're advising if you fall into that category, and we hoping it's just a few of you all, but it is a very, very serious situation to be aware of what's happening within your home. Whether your spouse who married before or not, whether they had children or not, whatever, if at the time, especially have those who say, I can't remember, the bank called me and so and so. Tarian, I had an actual case. I mean, a situation was real where the person found out, this is somebody I knew well, only found out that their name was not on the property when they had to file taxes and thought they could have claimed part of the interest at that time paid. And they were advised by the tax officer, this is what you can do. But your husband has to, they're sharing it. And that is when she found out in her case that her name wasn't on it. And what she was shocked at is that the house was built on land she inherited. But in doing that mortgage, you sort of give up your rights to the land. And Terry, and this is, I must say, very, I would have thought, intelligent professional who
Intelligence and
only
professionals
found
have
out that
nothing to do when
debt.
emotions get involved. It is
Right.
it has nothing to do.
So we're sharing this to say that check what it is, because you can't assume, and that is the other thing we talk about, that assumption. Don't assume anything. This time we are sharing about you being on that master point to get clarity, to know exactly where you're going to after. And this is really to share with you all so you would know, hey, let me check.
There's a principle in business that guides how teams operate. It's called trust but verify. So because I want to verify doesn't mean I don't trust you. And if you object to me verifying, then I should question my deep trust.
Why? Mm-hmm.
We in 2024, we are not in 1980 and 1970 when it started. We in 2024. So if you are still going on a mindset that was created in 1970 or 1960 or 1980 or 1990, just ask to see the deed. That's all. And if there's hesitancy, take care, because you will end up negotiating with a group of people who may not all be sympathetic to you. And that really messes up your master point.
Agreed. Terry, and the third point, I want to point out this one. And this is especially with us who didn't go beyond one. We have an only child. Or we may have had two and one may have died, but we end up with one child. And we just say, no, you don't have, and I hear it a lot. You don't have to worry. No, I don't have to worry. I don't have to make a will to do anything because all that I have belong to that child automatically, because it's told that if you die, that child is the main, the only one you have and could easily do that. But we need to look beyond that. And this is where, again, I always say, you have that discussion with your child. And as an adult, we spoke about adult children and their responsibilities, etc., and their assumptions. Some of them going along happy because they don't have to worry. They know whatever their parent, mother, or father have belonged to them, and they're very happy. But look at the scenario where at this stage in your life, that yes, your child is very healthy, and you assume that you will go before them. And that child, it could be from die, and I'm saying child, remember, it's adults, huh? I have a friend of mine, actually, and this is not his scenario, but I'm just recalling because his son was buried last week. Only child, son, 45. My friend is my age group, maybe a little slightly older, but his son is 45. His wife died not too long ago. And of course, everything he have is for his darling son. And his son recently died of a heart attack, age 45. You understand? So it could happen. So we have to look at the scenarios. Don't just assume, well, okay, right? And in that case, you have to relook at what is happening. So before you sit back or that child assuming everything all right, there is a scenario where the child could go before you, and you have to look at not just sitting back or some of us will say, well, I have nothing to live for again or whatever. No, we have to look into that. There are also situations where it may not be death. These are those kind of scenarios. And you also have to look beyond your son or daughter and your spouse. And when you look in terms of who inheriting what, we need to really look at our legacy, look at what we live in, and how we put in things in place, Terian. Because sometimes you have all great intentions, but you're not looking beyond that one person that you're going to, you figure, inheriting everything. You understand? We need to look a little beyond. So when you talk to a professional, when you talk to the lawyers, I think now they go through and drill down the different situations, but this is just for you to be aware how you're putting things in place, how you're preparing the master point to move on. Yeah.
And you know that putting things in place, sometimes you think and wonder what is there to put in place. If if your only child and there's no spouse dies suddenly and you've not got things organized, the table of priority goes to your family before your grandchild. So that child's child, your dear grandchild, may have to contend with your sisters and your brothers. Things, it doesn't go drill straight down before it goes across, So sometimes we have to shake ourselves out of that mode, which I think may have been acceptable probably 30 or 40 years ago, where well, I'm sure they're taking care of it. I'm not bothering with that. Because if you don't bother with it in your 70s and 80s, when your single child who is handling everything passes, and they're dependent on young and needing to be going to school and stuff goes away, you will not have the energy or the vitality to handle all that has happened. And because you just assume that you will live forever, you, my child, will live forever, and everything will be in place. So I don't need to state happen in the event of your passing. Or for myself, I have responsibility for people. And I cannot take it for granted that I will outlive them. I have responsibility for my father. I have responsibility for another dear family friend. I can't assume that they will go before me. If I drop down next week, it's chaos if I don't put things in place to make
Yep.
sure, because there is no rule and they will be left in the lurch. And the people who are left, because I am not going to assume about my husband's intentions or my children's intentions because they're in the natural line of succession for me.
Yep.
But they don't have the link to my father and their family friend that I have. So when I'm dead and gone, I can't control how they will think. I mean, they may know my wishes, but if wishes were horses, beggars would ride are dead. So now they
Yep.
determine what is to happen, regardless of what I wanted. So we may sit and think that I will go before the child. So they will handle everything. But it is not for us to determine that. It is for
I
God
know.
to determine that. And we mess up again. That's another way that we really mess up the master points and make things difficult by deferring decisions that we perceive to be difficult or will make us unpopular. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And Terry, and that brings me, this is last point. And this is really about, we're speaking a lot about putting things in place and the reason, and not leaving chaos behind or not living in chaos. And the idea of the master point is really for clarity,
Yeah.
directions, and making sure you clear the way. There is a point yes, where you can go for safety. But for you to go to that space for safety, Terry Ann, you have to trust where you are. You have to trust to just say, if I tell you that's the master point, you wouldn't go unless you believe that that person who given you the directions to go there and who in charge to direct you, you have to trust them. Right? You really, really have to trust. You cannot feel safe in a master point if you don't have trust. And I'm saying that because you see this where at this stage, we should really look at our bank accounts, whether we put in some trusted person. Now, we spoke about this before. We need to trust someone with our business. And as the lawyer Bernard had said, it don't have necessarily be your spouse or your child or someone who you trust, who you know would carry out your wishes. Right? And that again, when you make a will or you do a power of attorney and you have someone you know who trust. But Terry, and I want to go a little beyond that. In trusting, we have known there are scenarios, and you spoke about it, where the person you trust and you think would carry out your wishes may not do it. And let me share this story, and I'll let you share the others. And these stories are real. Eh? We given real scenarios here. So, and a friend told me this story too, because she was involved in the whole scenario. So this woman died. She didn't die. She didn't have long to live. The doctor gave her, a few months or whatever. Because of her type of ailment, she knew she wouldn't last. And she wanted to share her assets, right? So she had a lot of jewelry. She had 4 sons with their wives. So she decided she chose what she wanted and to who to get it, right? And she assigned a friend who, another friend, to do that. So the friend is the one who have the bags labeled.
Has possession of the jewelry.
Yep. And she died. So it didn't form part of a will. It's her word of mouth and
Wishes.
trusting her friend and her wishes. And she did not mention that to her daughter-in-law. And she did. And I was told the friend, one daughter-in-law, none of them like because they find so and so and so and so and so. And she got the other to agree that, yeah, then telling that daughter-in-law, because remember, nobody knew. So she left out the one that she felt then deserved it, although a friend told her to give it. And the other three agreed with her that the thing, and they shared it among themselves and didn't give it. Of course, I have to tell you, at some stage down the road, the truth came out. But we're talking about trust here. So my thing is, even if I'm sharing with you, Terry, and I'm saying I'm leaving you in charge and this and that, I think I need to give you a speech in addition to that to say, listen to me. Find some way that if this is what I want done and I'm leaving you in charge, I don't know what is the guarantee that you're going to
Not a
follow.
guarantee.
I think I will send a letter to everybody in that case saying, I'll give Terry and this to give to you. But then it creates a other confusion and a jealousy and all that. So just want to share that even in trusting, we really have to be so careful with different, how we do things.
Jennifer, that is such carelessness on the part of the person who died. It is such carelessness.
And this is real, so it was done.
If I know who has to get what, and I parcel it off, and I put name on it, hand the people at one time. What you're holding back for?
I could understand somebody not giving them whatever it is. And you know why, Tarian? You don't want it to look like you like this one more than that, and this one get more and I get. That is it,
For that carelessness and that laziness, the person you hand it to, there's a principle in law that says possession is 9/10 of the law. If you didn't write that down properly and send to everybody, look, this, if you so want to protect your good name and be in everybody's good books, you'll end up in everybody's bad books. Because if I give to a third party everything, and there's no contract with anybody else, and you drop dead men tell no tales. It is up to me and my goodwill to honor your words. There is nothing that commits.
And I think that's what you just said about dead man tell no tales.
Yes.
I think that came about as a result of these kind of things that is happening after death. How people could scheme and change things.
I am not saying scheming. I am going back to taking responsibility. It's not scheming. If you want to give this one most, and you know you don't want to give that one too much, you pretending and hiding and trying to protect yourself in life so that everybody like you.
Yeah, but that is what people do a lot, Tarian. That is what is done.
If you hand it to a third party, possession is 9/10 of the law with no contract written. That is, even if I hand it to you, I have to do a contract that says I'm giving you this in trust. That's what you're doing. You're setting up a trusteeship. A trust is governed by rules.
But let me also use Tarian.
If you put no rules.
And I know it happens again, where persons on the bed will say, okay, the person have a lot of clothes and things in the cupboard, real nice things. And they don't want to give it now. So they say, listen, you see this dress, that dress, give it to so-and-so. You see this shoes thing, give it to so-and-so. The thing watching them, it right there in the cupboard, that line up. Actually, they're telling you how to move things, and so one cupboard will have all the things I want to give away. The other cupboard, you could just donate that. But you see this cupboard, I'm telling you, give this one that, this one that, this one that, and after that, which is quite similar to the thing. And they trust you and they finish with that. And their trust is that when they close their eyes, you're going to distribute the clothes, not keep it for yourself. But you say there's not scheming. Terry, and there's a situation where there's scheming. Because the person you trust says, see that dress? I like that. I just using that scenario. I'm keeping that for myself.
It is not scheming. And this
What is it?
2024,
Dishonesty.
in this 2024, it is your irresponsibility, carelessness, and fear. You are setting
That
up a
encouraging that?
trusteeship. Yes, you are setting up a trusteeship. But you so want to be in everybody, you're writing it down nowhere. Once you die,
No. And that's it. They
done.
don't want nobody know. They don't want
Because
nobody know, and they're not
as
writing down. Yeah.
therefore, you are not serious. So the person who you told can assume, well, they didn't tell nobody, so I will choose first because obviously you're mad in your head and you ain't choose me to get nothing. So I'll take what I want first. And there's, you could say it's immoral, it whatever it is, but it comes back again to these shortcuts and side swipes that we like to do because we want to stay in
Mhm.
everybody's favor. If I tell a third party, you share it up, give this one this, and you write it down nowhere and sign it and tell everybody, hello, it's coming to you, but you'll get it after that. Everybody could come and say, well, where is the this, where is the that? But if you only told one person, you set up a trusteeship without a contract to cover it. That is like the wife saying,
And
that
Terry,
I
and
think
that's
you're
why we
jealousy.
say it. And as you said, responsibility. You see, this wanting everybody to like you, even in death, because all you need, it's so simple. To just tell the person, come and say, this and this is yours. Take this bag,
Give
take
it to
that bag.
them. Give it to
So
them.
many, and we're sharing this because this is what we don't want to repeat situations like that
Yeah.
because it creates problems.
And then
You know,
after
so
you're dead,
situations like that, just don't do things
yeah,
like that.
you're bad talking everybody saying how they're unfair and this and that. When the person who was wrong in the first place is the dearly departed, who looking pretty in the coffin, and you have one person
Who
over there
cause, who
wailing
cause
and
all the
bawling,
confusion?
and next one on the grave screaming. And it is because you who lie down there so peacefully at rest left your matters up in the air and some third party who, whether it was the caregiver who was in the house
Yeah.
and you were on the bed by yourself and they already took what they want, all that you allocate to everybody, they don't take it already. Because you cannot have a trusteeship without a contract that determines, and that's what you're doing with this trust business.
So we need to, these are serious situations, Terrian,
I call
to
them
make sure.
I call them verbal wills, and a verbal will is nothing. It's hot air coming out of your mouth. And we really cannot leave our legacy, our children, our grandchildren, and hope, trust but verify. I have a lot of faith in human beings. I have a lot of personally have a lot of responsibility to my siblings for family assets. And I know they can trust me, but I have things in place that will allow them to verify. Because
Yeah.
it's unfair to put the burden on after my father is dead for them to trust that I'm bringing out everything. No, that's cruelty. Trust but verify.
Yeah.
Write down and send
But
it to everybody.
the reality is it happens if things are not put in place properly. And if we want to be, you know, taking sides all the time and changing our minds because
That is
it
why
has
you lose
scenarios
everything.
that
That is why you lose
some
everything.
people they don't want to make will, they don't want to do this, but every minute they're changing their mind. So they will tell one person or sibling or whoever, you see this here, this is yours, you could be assured of so and so. And then they will, and if they get vexed, they switch again.
No.
And they're playing games among their siblings.
And when you're
And that
playing
for
games, you
me,
end
it
up
is
in
not, yeah, it must create confusion. And at the end of the day, when the siblings not getting along or somebody who you don't know about come and play, then it creates the whole thing. But that person then and go on and leave you in all the confusion. So the thing is, Terian, for us, for those of us who still have our parents alive, and we are afraid to ask them or let them do well, even if They don't want you to know, as Bernard said. They can go quiet. You don't have to know, but at least let them go
Go to
and
their bank.
prepare
Go to the bank. The
a
banks
thing.
offer
Yeah.
the service. But then some of them
And
people don't want to pay for
understand
the service.
the different thing. And as you say, bank, that's so important too, because you have scenarios where, and somebody explained to me today that this man, 100, they were interviewing him, and his sibling, his children, two of his children, they were at the interview and they say, he's going to bank for himself, He don't want any of us to go. And they say, how he is going? I said, they send him, and listen to this. They send him with a driver, and he talk, he know about it, and the bank, they know him, So when he goes, he tell them what he wants, and they give him the money because he go in and take out cash, by the way. And the driver brings him back home, and he tell them now what to do the money. Take this money and buy this. Take this money and buy that. And they're saying that is what he like to do, So we like to give him that responsibility at 100 because he celebrated the 100 and they were interviewing and take. Now, is that responsible and showing responsibility?
He knows what he's doing.
With a stranger, with a driver,
He
and
knows
the
what he's
tellers in the bank aware that he like to come because he like to come and do his thing. None of the children could go. And I'm talking children, I'm talking about big people like me. I'm not talking about, he's 100. So we ain't talking about little people.
Jennifer,
You understand?
the man know what he doing. He's at 100, he operating like that. And the bank, the next thing is the bank checks his competencies. And if they are issuing to him, they have satisfied themselves. He has all his faculties together.
I listen and all I say, geez, I just see chaos at the end of it.
There's no chaos. It is what he intends and what we have to be careful
No, but
about
in
as we
a
wrap
lot
up.
of situations, that age group, Terry, and you cannot get them. It is difficult. Maybe in his case, it's real genuine, but in many situations, it is because they don't want to hand over that reign. They want to be in charge all the time.
And Jennifer, I think if our parents are like that, what we need to do is recognize they're not ready to hold it off. And if we looking at their assets and their wealth as pledges for us, we need to check our own minds and chill.
No, but a scenario like this, we really need understanding. Okay, they want to handle the finances, and as you say, they have given that good bill of health that they can do that. They have good mental state and everything is all right. But we who, if anything happen, if they get sick, if whatever, have to deal with them, we need to be aware of who they're with them and their assets. Because some of them are very stubborn. And if we don't check into, okay, can I access any money in case of an emergency? Or who would be the one to access the money in case of emergency? Because if it's done that there's nobody put in place, no power of attorney, nothing, then you could have a problem. So for me, it's at least check it out. Yeah. Find out, especially if you may have the responsibility. If an emergency, they're looking at you to do it. Because you may have other siblings, but you are the one they feel more responsible. I think you have to look into it and see who has that authority. Who we put, in charge in peace.
These situations where it seems and it's this and this one is a parent. If I have a parent that is behaving like that, then it is clear I'm not responsible. And I will be responsible to the extent that I give myself responsibility. So there is no chaos. And I think it's less what our parents are doing, but many of us are following in the mold that they created. And that is what I think is important, that we cut it out and stop it. Because
as I say, we sharing these scenarios.
They are what they do.
And it's what you said. We should not repeat it, and we should look at other alternatives to the situations, because they have so many situations, and what you're looking at is a clear path, so we wouldn't find ourselves in difficulties.
Well, that is the case, and I think many of us want to create difficulty because we still don't want to call a spade, and I think we need to be accountable and say, well, this is what I'm doing, and no, it isn't doing. So,
Yeah.
and go along with that. But we really do hope that our discussions on these master points at least jolts you into realizing that
Yeah.
if your legacy is of confusion and disorganized stuff, cut it. Try to go forward in an organized way so that
Yeah.
you and because that old man, if one day he just loses cognition and gets dementia and stuff, all shut down, the bank owns the money until he dies, and the will is probated according to the formula given in the law, which might be 3-4 years after the death. So we have to realize that if we have a verbal wish, the law don't work with that. And after we die, if we did nothing, there's a formula they go to, and the formula might be just contrary to what our intention was. So
Yeah.
So we hope this has been useful. Not too stressful.
As you say, a lot of food for thought, but this is serious because at this stage, we need to be aware and not to be afraid, of, we like to hide behind all sorts of things, so come out of hiding if you're hiding and face the reality. Take responsibility, take charge of what is happening around. Yeah.
Okay. So until next week, be a responsible
Right?
child.
And remember, we told you all that our carnival line is coming up, and it's on Sunday the 4th.
Mhm.
So we line in for carnival, and you have to call us early
Mhm.
because it's limited numbers. It's not a big fete; it's a carnival line.
Yes, definitely.
So we're looking forward to hearing from you, for you to join us when that time comes.
Definitely. So see you. Bye.
Bye.
50 Plus Tribe, and follow us from Trinidad and Tobago and the Caribbean. Thank you for joining us on this Connections 50 Plus 5.8G Alive show. We hope you enjoyed the lively conversation and look forward to seeing you next week. Don't forget to like our Facebook page and subscribe to our YouTube channel. We really love getting your feedback. Bye for now.